So compared to the light-dependent reaction, the Calvin cycle is actually pretty simple. The Calvin cycle is just a series of chemical reactions that happen in the aqueous stroma. The purpose of the Calvin cycle is to reduce CO2. And remember, reduce means gaining electrons. So we want the CO2 to gain electrons and other stuff so we can turn it into sugar. So let's take a look. So there's a few different steps of the Calvin cycle. We have carbon fixation, reduction, release of G3P, and the regeneration of RuBP. Now, this might be the first time you're hearing about G3P and RuBP, so don't worry, we'll get to those soon. But first, I want you to remember what is providing energy to the Calvin cycle. Because making sugar is an endergonic process. We have to put energy into the sugar because sugar has a lot of energy. Where does that energy come from? Think about it. Okay, did you think about it? Yes, it comes from the light reaction. Okay, the light-dependent reaction is where we made the ATP and the NADPH. These molecules are giving energy to the Calvin cycle so that we can make this sugar. Some people think that the carbon dioxide is providing energy to the plant, but really the carbon dioxide that the plants breathe in through the stoma, this is just providing the carbon, okay? So using the carbon from the CO2, electrons from NADPH, high energy electrons, and energy from ATP, the Calvin cycle constructs or makes G3P. G3P is a small, high-energy molecule that we can use to make glucose and some other organic molecules as well. So G3P is like the building block of glucose, and it takes two of these G3P molecules to make one glucose. So if we're looking at the whole process of photosynthesis, the Calvin cycle is right here. We're taking the high-energy molecules, ATP and NADPH, from the light-dependent reaction, and we take the CO2 from the stomata, and when we put them all together and perform these chemical reactions, we get the Calvin cycle. And if you've never seen any biochemistry before, this can be kind of an intimidating picture, like, oof, there's a lot of stuff on here. But don't worry about it, because it's actually really logical, and once you review it a few times, it becomes a little more simple than it looks. But if you want your parents to think you're super smart, you could show them this picture and be like, look, I'm so good at the Calvin cycle, look at this. Because it looks pretty cool and it looks pretty complex, but it's actually not that bad. So in the next couple of videos, we'll go into each of these steps on their own.